The more that the story progresses, it seems like Kaido was right that Haki truly does transcend all. During his fight against Kaido after being hit by the Ragnaroku, Luffy, he understands it now. He understands that coding his attacks and conquers was the next step that he needed in his fight with Kaido. Zoro, on the other hand, was different. In his fight against King, he knew that he had reached another level, but he didn't understand how he did it. It was the same attack, Advanced Conqueror. It wasn't that Zoro didn't know how to use the technique, because we've seen in arcs later that he was able to use it again, but if you ask him to explain it, well, he probably couldn't. Fast forward to Egghead, and I'm going to specifically highlight Luffy here because Zoro fought against Lucci, we know how that went, but with Luffy against the Gorosei, he couldn't damage them. Now, whether or not that you want to say he was or he wasn't using Advanced Conquerors, that's up to you, but I find it hard to believe that opponents of this caliber, I'm talking about the Gorosei, I'm talking about Kizaru, I find it hard that Luffy would just ignore using that technique. Like I said, against opponents of that caliber, he just fought against Kaido. That's not me saying that the Gorosei or Kizaru are necessarily stronger than Kaido, but they're up there for sure. The same thing happened in Elbaf with different characters. Of course, there's the lesser Straw Hats, at least in terms of physical strength. They don't know Haki like that except for Jinbei, but Jinbei's been disappointment in the entirety of the Elbaf arc, but we've seen them against the Holy Knights, against Gunko, against Summers, how they appear to be immortal and that they couldn't be defeated. Rayleigh, he answered the question about how someone's supposed to deal with Logia, so I'd say it's only fitting that Scopper Gaban, he's the one that showcased the solution to bypass the immortality. The answer to that is simply Conqueror's Haki. Luffy and Zoro, they still have another level to reach, and more so Zoro for this video, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. Conqueror's Haki being the solution, it was answered in two ways. Number one, with Gaban attacking Summers, whose arm didn't regenerate and he clearly took and felt damage for the first time, and then number two, what was revealed in chapter 1152. In this chapter, Gaban told Luffy to be mindful of how he uses his conquerors, and that the Holy Knights, they may seem immortal, but they're actually not. And Loki, who we assume has conquerors, and I think with this statement, it confirms that. He said that Gaban's word clicked with him, and now he knows how to fight the Holy Knights. At least to me, that insinuates that there's another level to using Advanced Conqueror. Gaban also confirmed that there's another Conqueror's member amongst the crew, which is none other than Zoro. I mean, as fans, we knew that, but apparently, well, Zoro didn't know, and I find that strange because after attacking Kaido with Ashura, Kaido literally told him that he was using Conqueror, so like, Zoro, what are you doing? And then in his fight against King, now this one, I can give Zoro some bail. He knocked out part of the Beast Pirates, wasn't necessarily paying attention to him. He was blinded, right? Had his blinders on, tunnel vision on King. And King stated that Zoro had kingly ambitions. So yeah, that one's not necessarily as direct, but the one with Kaido clearly stating it, oh, that's inexcusable. Luffy also stated that Zoro's Conqueror's Haki is flowing out of him. So if that's the case, if Luffy knew all this time, why the heck didn't Luffy say anything about it? I mean, I feel like that's pretty important, but at the same time, Luffy's an idiot, so maybe we can write it off as that. One thing I loved about Gaban and Zoro's interaction here, low-key, Zoro got humbled, and I think that this is refreshing because he's always on Luffy's case, always on Luffy's neck, like the instance during Punk Hazard where he told him to lock in, this is the new world, and I'm not trying to say that this is necessarily bad or anything. Zoro is the vice captain. That's literally in his job description. It's just refreshing to see someone get on Zoro's case for a change because we've never seen that before. Gaban was like, as a member of Luffy's crew, Zoro needs to pay more attention to the detail because Haki is so meticulous and you need to be able to control it consciously. Once again, this proves that Zoro has another level that he can reach. I think this also begs the question, when the heck was Luffy able to detect that Zoro is a conqueror? Because Conqueror's Haki is something that you're born with. It's not something that you can train directly, and it only gets stronger as the user gets stronger. So did Luffy notice that Zoro was a conqueror after he unlocked Advanced Conquerors during Wano? But at the same time, that was the advanced version. He displayed conquerors before that, or at least some form of overwhelming spirit. For example, in his fight against Monet. It's also stated that the sword user chooses the sword, and at the same time the sword also chooses their user. And so thinking back about Enma and how Enma was, well, what you could say a wild child, did Enma choose Zoro because the blade noticed how much Conquerors was flowing out of Zoro all this time? And then what the heck does flow truly mean? Because when you look at Rio, it talked about and harped about the flow, the flow, the flow. So does the same application happen to Conquerors? And if that's the case, oh, when Zoro masters that flow, oh, he's gonna be a problem. This is, I'd say, a small detail, but in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of important, because if Luffy was able to notice that Zoro was a Conqueror's user because of his flow, then that means that Luffy and Gaban did it as well, and whenever Zoro reaches level, he should be able to as well. That means that they're able to detect who all has Conqueror's Haki, no? For example, within this chapter, Sanji, he asked Gaban plenty of times, was like, hey, I'm a Conqueror, and people are gonna look at it as Gaban ignoring him, which, yes, all right, he technically, I guess, did, and people are gonna say it makes Sanji look bad, but at the same time, it's not a no, it's not a yes, but it's also not a no. But if you guys have made it this far into the video and you're enjoying the content, let me know by leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. I pump out different One Piece content almost each and every day. I saw some people within the community after this chapter saying that, hey, this makes Rayleigh, this makes Mihawks bad teachers because they could have been shown this to Luffy and Zoro. At the same time, people need to realize that teaching is all about guiding and not just giving people the answers. Because yes, technically they could have just given Luffy and Zoro the answers, but how would they learn and how would they grow? Plus Haki blooms in battle, so well, it's not really much you can do. I think this begs the question, what is next for Zoro? He's got to get to the level where he can notice other Conquerors users like Gaban and Luffy. That's a must. The flow part, I kind of touched on this earlier. I'm not entirely sure if this is supposed to be a good or a bad thing. I think it can be interpreted as both, because you could make the argument that his Haki is leaking out, and so that means it's not necessarily being utilized to its fullest potential. Because if we're being honest, if you look at traditional Conquerors users, and I'm gonna use Luffy as an example, where there's been different clashes or different people getting knocked out, have we really seen this from Zoro? Yes, but not really. Like Gaban said, Zoro needs to be using Conquerors where it's at the point that he's consciously aware about it, to the point where he's using it as easy as breathing. Because even in Wano, and obviously like Gaban stated, his body has become accustomed to it a little bit more as we've seen his growth with his fight against Lucci. But back in Wano, the Haki was overwhelming and he had to finish the fight quickly because time was running out. Getting to the point where Haki's easy as breathing, that is the ultimate goal. I think that Luffy, he is definitely a step ahead of Zoro, headed in the right direction. Earlier in the arc when Chopper fell down into Underworld, Luffy was able to notice him, but he was like, hey, how the heck did I know it was Chopper? I think this is because of Luffy being able to consciously use it, but also unconsciously use it at the same time. Like I said, he's using it like his breathing. I think the best example of this is Conqueror with his observation Haki, and more specifically his future sight. He always has it activated and he uses it like it's nothing. There's no strain on his body. I think once Zoro's able to do that, it'll allow him to take his Conquerors to a whole nother level. And well, his Conquerors is already insane because number one, he scarred the strongest creature, he clipped off a Lunarian's wings, and he left a nasty scar on Lucci. Low-key, my boy looks like a T-bone steak. Once Zoro can tame his Conquerors, I think this is truly where he's able to be a master of a blade, and I think that this is whenever he's going to be able to turn his blade black. That's when Enma is finally going to be tamed. Personally, I think this is when Zoro will have officially surpassed Kazuki Oden. Like I said, I think that this is probably the key to allow Zoro to truly turn his blades black. We know with armament that you can do it, but it's only temporary, and so I wonder if Conquerors is the key. Since it revolves around having strong willpower, maybe Zoro, he can turn his blades black by having the strong will or desire to do so. But that's just my thoughts about the Haki oozing or the Haki flow, because that was a really important thing in the chapter, so I really wanted to touch on that. I will still be doing my breakdown. This should go up on Sunday. The breakdown should go up on Tuesday, and then later down the line I should also have a Shanks video talking about being the child of destiny. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know how you guys felt about this video in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video from me. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok is on the screen in the description below, and don't forget to unleash your potential.